of the Safir series again today, powered by alcohol. And indeed, we appreciate everyone for joining this very early. Inshallah, our lecturer is very much available on the call. I'll plead that, we just wait for in 2 minutes time, inshallah. Once it is 11:03, we'll get started officially, inshallah. So we'll have others join the call. So we won't have people miss anything at all, inshallah. Thank you all very much for joining. Once it is 11:03, inshallah, we'll get started. Now, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, we appreciate everyone for joining the call this morning. Thank you very much for joining. Inshallah, just like I stated earlier, that once it is 11:03, we'll get started. We just want, every other person to join the call before we get started. Inshallah, since our lecturer is very much available, we will then proceed to the commencement of the program for today. Just like I've rightly introduced, we welcome you all to this month's Safir series, powered by alcohol. And just like we've always done, the first thing that we're going to start with it is the dua. And the person that will lead us in the dua today, inshallah, will be Raziak. Raziak, Bismillah.
Naam, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We give praise to Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has given us the opportunity to be alive to this moment. We ask him to continue to shower his mercies and blessings upon every one of us. Allahumma ameen. As we're about to commence today's this month's Safi webinar series, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy and to make the lecture a beneficial one for every one of us in this life and the hereafter. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much, Brother Ziak, for that beautiful one. Just like we've always done. So for those of you that are just joining us for the first time, this is a monthly series that is always happening, that is powered by alcohol. In here, we that revolves on cooperative and also cooperative operations as well too. And today also we have, one of our amazing fathers in the house that is, very much experienced in the conversation or the topic of discourse today that will be leading us in this session today. So I'll just briefly, read through the profile of our lecturers so everyone would get, accustomed and also familiar with the lecturer for today's session. Inshallah, we have with us today Mr. Ismail Rufai, the CSAA, is the head of Financial and Sharia Advisory Unit at 117 Capital Limited. His major area of specialization is Islamic finance with focus on product development, Islamic contract structuring, research, financial advisory, portfolio management, private wealth management, etc. He has advised both private and public entities in the issuance of Sukuk. He has also previously worked with Lotus Capital Limited as a sales executive within the northern region and was a team lead for the retail market and the BOI intervention fund. He is an accounting and auditing organization for Islamic Financial Institution, AAOIFI, Certified Sharia Advisor, and also Auditor, CSA Fellow. He is an alumnus of University of Abuja, where he studied and majored in economics. He also had a certificate in global financial markets and instruments issued by Rush University and investment analysis and portfolio management issued by the Ex Academy of the Nigeria Exchange Group, NGX. He has facilitated and attended different workshops and trainings on Islamic finance within and outside Nigeria. His interests are in human development, financial literacy, and Islamic finance advocacy. And that is the amazing portfolio. Can I confirm that I'm being heard, please? Oh, okay, sure.
Your line is breaking.
Yeah, I think he just finished his introduction. It has some issues.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Am I being heard now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, sorry. Where did you miss me? Where did I stop? Sorry. I guess that was my network.
You can just wrap up the introduction of the lecture.
The introduction. Okay. And okay, I don't know where probably you heard the introduction, so but I guess I was just talking. I did not know that my network had tripped off already. So the last
No,
thing
we
on
actually heard you clearly. You can just wrap it up. We heard you clearly.
Okay.
You can
So
just wrap.
inshallah, that will be the lecturer, anchoring today's session with us. And the topic of this course will be Sukuk for cooperatives, the opportunity for growth and also development, inshallah. That will be the topic of conversation today. And our lecturer is very much available. So let's have him. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is he here?
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning, everyone. And probably permit me to also share my slide.
Yes, you can go ahead, sir.
So is my slide visible?
Very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. To be introduced, my name is Rufai Ismail, and I'm the CEO of 117 Financial Services Limited. which is an investment banking firm registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission Nigeria to provide Sharia compliant investment banking services. So what we do is 100% Sharia compliant fundraising within the Nigerian capital market ecosystem. And today, through the Alcohol team, I'll be doing a presentation on Sukuk for Cooperatives, opportunities for growth and development as it is. And basically, in the learning outcomes for people who probably will be joining, I'll be briefly explaining some of the concept of Sukuk, which is the understanding Sukuk meaning. Then also going through the understanding the features of Sukuk and the asset classifications. Then we also now look at the Sukuk contract, the issues in relation to Sukuk and Sukuk impact on the real economy. Now come to the cooperative side, which is the basic theme of this particular session. In terms of the prohibition in Islamic finance, probably for people, I bring this for people probably are non-Muslim who join the call and probably who also may not have enough understanding of some of the prohibitions in Islamic finance. Is that number one, we have the gara, which is the excessive uncertainty. So when we say excessive, so we are not just saying gara, which is the uncertainty, we are saying excessive. Excessive meaning that the underlying asset of transaction is not even known. It's like somebody who is saying that my car has been stolen and I've given the police the mandate to help me look for the car. However, before the police will get the car, I want to sell the car to you. At that point, the ownership of that car is not with him again. Why? Because the car was stolen. So can he sell the car? The answer is no. What is the probability that the police will recover that car for him? Then the answer is also maybe tending to zero. So as such, you can't sell what you do not own at that point. Or a fisherman who also said, I want to go to the river to go and farm or fish and decided to sell before he actually got the fish. Yes, we understand that there are some contracts, especially salam contracts, that allows you selling farm produce before the cultivation. However, in other areas, because that one is an exception, in other areas you don't sell, or there should be an underlying asset that you need to sell, which will form part of it. Yes, there's an uncertainty in business that you may either make profit or loss. This is a normal uncertainty. But when it becomes excessive, when the underlying asset of transaction is not even known, or is not in your possession, or the ownership is not with you, then it becomes excessive as such. The same thing is when we look at some Aram businesses like prohibition or investing in conventional banks, entities that engage in production of alcohol, cigarettes, and gambling companies, which today within the Nigerian and also other jurisdictions, we can see that we have Muslims that invest a lot in some of these companies, and some of them ignorantly or intentionally, they even promote some of these businesses through adverts, or some of them are influenced as they advertise this company for people to come and invest or consume the product. I believe it is very important for every Muslim to understand the kind of businesses they can do, either directly or indirectly, as an investor, as somebody who wants to market or promote the activities of such kind of businesses. So I believe cooperative also fall within that, because we may have cooperative who may also want to engage in the sales or production of certain type of goods. It is very important for cooperative leaders or members to understand whether the industry they want to operate or the goods or services they want to sell is within their around level, so that they can avoid or be able to run away from such. They also have mindset, which is basically gambling. As it is today, gambling has been made easy that people can sit down on the comfort of their bed or even in their sitting room and be playing and be gambling. In the past, you have to go to where the pool is being organized. But now it has been made easy through technology that people now play belt or even football belt or anything as such. So it shows that these are multi-billion dollars industry. Whether we like it or not, we also have Muslims who are also participating in it. Some are even owners and promoters of some of these businesses. And these are foundation of what made Islamic finance Islamic finance. So whether as a financial institution, you can't finance businesses that have direct or indirect relationship with most of these things that have been mentioned above. Then we also now have riba, which is basically the main object of the prohibition, which is the interest itself, either interest on food, either interest on investment, or any items that will lead to riba as such. Riba is a grave sin that every Muslim should run away from. However, like I mentioned, most of technology have made consuming some of these things so easy that you have to be careful that you will not run into riba. As such, it is now very important for every Muslim, whether on the call, for us to be an advocate of the good side of finance or economics, that economy should not be about just profit. There are other parts that we need to consider. And riba, being a prohibited item of Islamic finance, is very important for every Muslim to be worried of any investment activities or business each and every one of us want to do. Today, we have people who are not investing in riba, but their businesses engage in riba activities. So meaning whether as a business owner, whether as an investor, be it on the supply or demand side, they one need to be careful, one need to understand basically the prohibitions and why we need to run away from it. So the question will now be, what are the alternatives to some of these prohibitions? And this is where Islamic finance now comes in. So Islamic finance, yes, there is one thing that we Muslims need to know. Number one is that Islamic finance is for everyone. And virtually everything is halal except what has been prohibited. So meaning we should not put too much emphasis on the prohibition and assume that Islam is against we making money or Islam is against we not being rich. However, if you check the pillars of Islam, we realize that we have zakat, which basically it is those who have money that can give zakat. We also have going to Hajj, which is people who can also perform the pilgrimage to the Holy Land. So as such, it shows that Islam encourages us to be wealthy. However, we have to do it the halal way. And this will now lead us to having the Sukuk as a name, which is the subject of today's presentation. Sukuk, especially for people in Nigeria, because a lot of people come into the concept Sukuk through the federal government of Nigeria Sukuk. As such, when you ask some people what is Sukuk, some will tell you that Sukuk is like a construction company. Why? Because majority of the federal government of Nigeria Sukuk have been used in the construction of roads. So when they see the signboard by the roadside, they believe Sukuk is a construction company. Some believe Sukuk is an entity owned by the federal government of Nigeria, used basically for the construction of road. However, Sukuk is a global financial instrument that been implemented in many jurisdictions of the world. According to IOP is the accounting and audit organization of Islamic financial institutions. We define Sukuk as a certificate of equal value that represents individual undivided ownership in an underlying asset or usufruct or services, in which that the asset of particular project is owned basically by the investors. So meaning the owners of this SPV are automatically the owners of this particular asset, and they own the asset. That asset will now be subjected to use, and it is expected that the income generated from these assets will constitute what will be payable to the investors as profits, return, dividend, depending on the nomenclature that we are going to define such. And Sukuk is probably known as the Sharia compliant bond. So in the conventional side, we have what we call conventional bond. And I'll be giving a slight difference between the two. So the Islamic, or I will not say the alternative now. So because the use of the alternative sometimes is that we always want to compare Islamic finance with the conventional. I believe these are two financial sector or services that run parallel. Everyone has his own unique feature. So one is not an opposite of the other or an alternative to the other. It shows that Islamic finance is a form of finance that can actually stand on its own. So it is right that we stop looking at it as an alternative. So having defined this briefly, then we now need to look at Sukuk itself, that is about the financial provider, which means we have an SPV or the investors, as the case may be, who have the asset of either the asset is a real asset, fiscal asset that we can see. It will be in form of services like in the telecommunication, whereby we have assets that in form of intangible goods as such, but it has value. And it also be in form of services, be it in the education or health sector, whereby one can purchase the services of a service provider and any return from those assets. So this contrasts with conventional bond, where the investors are more like, it involves more like a debt relationship, and they predominantly earn interest, whether the money used or raised was actually used in the infrastructure development it was meant for or not. So meaning the difference is very clear, why one is Sharia compliant or not. In terms of the difference there, in terms for the conventional bond, the ownership of the assets under conventional bond is a bond which represents the issuer's pure debt. So it's just a debtor-creditor relationship. Whereas for Islamic finance, while Sukuk represents ownership stake in an underlying asset. So meaning for Sukuk, it is basically an ownership in the underlying asset in which the Sukuk owners are the owners of such. In terms of value at risk, so when we say value at risk, meaning using the delta normal or Monte Carlo simulation method, the value at risk of a conventional bond is very high compared to Sukuk. And for the Sukuk, it is lower compared to conventional bond. What it means that because the Sukuk has an underlying asset, so there is no how a transaction that have underlying asset and the other one that does not have underlying asset. Meaning, in case of anything tomorrow, the one that have asset, at least you can sell the asset to recover any amount that have been invested. And in most situations, you can sell it even more than the actual initial value of such asset. Meaning, most assets that appreciate in value, like real estate, since you are the 100% owner of those assets, any income that comes in belongs to you. In terms of the pricing, bonds are largely priced on the credit rating of the sponsor, meaning the market rate or the interest rate as such. But for Sukuk, it depends on the underlying asset. So meaning you have to look at the income generating power of the underlying assets to mostly determine what the rate of Sukuk will be. And however, there is also in situation, you can also use the prevailing market rate to also determine the asset, if the underlying asset can actually generate such kind of return. In terms of the transfer or sell, in the two, the amount to sell, it amount to you are selling your debt. So meaning when a Sukuk is traded or being listed on the exchange, what you sell in the conventional bond is that you are just selling your debt to another person. But in Sukuk, when you sell your own portion of the Sukuk, what you've done is that you are selling your ownership in that underlying asset. As such, you cannot come back and say you are part of the owners in that particular Sukuk again. And for the underlying asset, the asset must be backed by an asset for the Sukuk transaction. But for conventional, it must not be backed by an asset. And that is why sometimes you see the government borrowing money to either do recurrent expenditure. But for Sukuk have to be used strictly for capital expenditure. And that has the reason why Sukuk is one of the best options for developing nations, whether in the Asian side or Africa or the Middle East, that this encourage fiscal infrastructure development rather than the monetary policy that conventional bond are being used as part of the monetary policy instrument. In continuation, the contracts in under conventional is just basically loan with interest for the conventional side. So while for Sukuk, you have different contracts which could be lease, sales, partnership, or agency contract. For the use of proceed under the conventional, it is unrestricted. If the federal government of Nigeria need capital today, they only say they want to raise 1 trillion naira. The investors are not interested what the federal government of Nigeria will use the money for. All what they are after is that, is it backed by the full faith of the federal government through the central bank? If it's yes, whether the money is stolen, diverted, it has no use. But for Sukuk, when you are raising capital for Sukuk for infrastructure projects, we have different mechanisms that have been put in place that will ensure that that project must be executed. Without the project, then the Sukuk is also tantamount to be likened to be a conventional instrument as such. So meaning it must be restricted to Sharia compliant assets. And like I've mentioned, that we have prohibition in Islamic finance. So as such, none of this money in Sukuk can be used for any of the prohibited businesses, be it conventional bank, be it conventional insurance, breweries, tobacco company, adult entertainment related, or any industry that have been termed Sharia not compliant. In terms of tradability, most conventional bonds are fully tradable, but for Sukuk, it depends on the underlying contract. So there are some contracts which are like sales contracts. I've sold an item to you. That item, it is no longer in my own ownership. So as such, I can't list it on an exchange for it to be traded. Why? Because I cannot sell what I do not hold as such. So we have different contracts that determines whether the Sukuk can be listed on the exchange for tradable or it cannot be traded. In terms of the direct impact on the economy, the conventional bond have little or no impact on infrastructure since it's mostly used as a monetary policy instrument by the central bank. But for Sukuk, it has full impact on the economy. It can be used as monetary and it can also be used as both fiscal policy. So we can see even by the budgetary impact, Sukuk has more budgetary impact, growth and development on the economy than the conventional bond. And in terms of recourse, this now we are talking about the legal side, that the recourse on conventional bond is on the obligor. But for Sukuk, the recourse will be on the asset and the obligor at such, also depending on whether it is an asset-backed or asset-based Sukuk. So we'll be able to explain basically in summary the difference between the conventional bond and the Sukuk, as we can see on my screen. Now, when we look at the contract, like I've mentioned, in Islamic finance, we have different contracts. Islamic finance, like we know, is broadly divided. We have the economic side and we have the social side of Islamic finance. On the social side, that's where we have the Qard Hasan, which is the benevolent loan, the Wakaf, the Zakat, the Sadaqat, that are basically on the social side. Now we are talking about the economic side, meaning Islamic finance encourages us to make money. So when you look at the contracts here, we have contracts that are partnership in nature, we have contracts that are sales in nature, we have contracts that are lease-based, and we also have contracts that are agency-based. Under the partnership, that's where we have Musharaka and Mudaraba. And the difference is that in Mudaraba is a contract, is a partnership in business in which two parties come together. One is providing the capital while the other person manages the capital. The one who provides the capital will qualify him as the Rabbamal, while the one who is managing the capital is the Mudarib. One must be involved in the managing of the business, and they both share the profits based on agreed profit sharing ratio. For the musharaka meaning that the two parties must contribute something to the basket. What it could be in kind and it could be in cash. And the two of them can also manage the business as such. So meaning in Mudaraba, the first one, at least one of the partners must be a passive partner, meaning he only contributes capital, while the other person will be the active partner. But in Musharaka, the two partners can be active, at least one of them must be active, and the two partners can also be passive. So depending on how you want the transaction to be structured. And in terms of when you make loss, your loss will be limited to the financial contribution into the business, especially for Musharaka. But for Mudaraba, the provider of the capital will enjoy the loss in total. We don't have sales contracts, meaning where we have Murabaha, which is one of the most widely used contracts within the banking and even the finance side. They also have Istisna, which is mostly used in the construction side, and Salam, which is basically used in agricultural commodity financing. We have the lease, which is Ijara. Ijara is a lease contract between the lessee and lessor, whereby the lessor leases the usufruct and usage of a particular asset to the lessee, and the lessee is expected to pay rentals periodically, and it will lead to transfer of ownership at the end, or the asset coming back to the lessor as such. And in some, you can have sublease relationship under the Ijara contract. On the agency, there is where we have the Wakala contract, which is basically an agent between the Wakil and the person and the other entities in this transaction. So these are some of the contracts that we have in Islamic finance, and Sukuk can be structured under any of these major contracts, be it partnership, sales contract, lease contract, or agency contract. In Nigeria, we've seen Sukuk being structured in some of these contracts, some even on an hybrid level. In terms of Sukuk classification, Sukuk can be classified either as asset based or asset backed. Asset based. So now we'll be looking at the legal representation of the asset itself and the obligation. For asset-based Sukuk, what it means that the recourse is on the obligor and not the asset. For instance, I purchased a car, I sold it to you. Now, if I sold the car to you, the ownership of, if it's Murabaha we are using, the ownership of that car is no longer with me, the seller, even when you need to pay me back the money in 6 months. I've sold the car to you, then automatically the ownership of that car is being transferred to you automatically. So now the recourse, if we have anything with that particular transaction, the recourse is now on you, the buyer. Why? Because I'm no longer own that asset. I can only hold you responsible to pay me back. But if it's Ijara contract that we've done, I only give you the usufruct to use the asset, while the ownership of that asset is still with me, the seller. So if anything happens tomorrow, I can retrieve the car, sell the car. If you've paid me a certain amount, I return the certain amount to you, then I sold the car to a third party. So you can see that in these two relationships, one, the recourse will only be on the buyer. Why? Because it is an asset-based Sukuk. Meaning, but if the recourse is on the asset itself, they will clarify it as what? Asset-backed Sukuk. For most asset-backed, we normally establish the SPV, meaning the ownership. There must be true transfer of ownership of that asset to the SPV. So under asset base, there is no true transfer of ownership, meaning you still have the legal ownership in the name of the entity. But for asset-backed, the true ownership, there must be a legal transfer of ownership to the SPV, which shows that the asset is now being owned by that SPV that SPV in case tomorrow anything happens that the transaction do not pay back, the SPV can sell the asset to retrieve the money for the investors. So meaning you have to now look at the legal side of it. Some contracts are basically linked us to the asset base, especially Moraba contracts. Why? Because when you sell an asset, the 100% ownership has been transferred as such. And when we now look at parties in a normal Sukuk contract, we have the originator, we have the special purpose vehicle. So since we are talking about cooperative today, the originator is basically like the cooperative society who need capital to be structured. While the special purpose vehicle is now a share company that has been established by the cooperative, which will involve other parties as the shareholders of that particular SPV. Now we now have the stakeholders, which may be the cooperative members, identify who are interested in the transaction. We now have the obligor, meaning whose responsibility it is to pay back the profit or rental in utilizing the particular asset the SPV is going to either sell, lease, or what, partner with that particular obligor as such. Then we now have the delegate trustees, which mostly are self-regulated, who act on behalf of the investors in managing and directing the affairs of the special purpose vehicle, which is the SPV established for that Sukuk transaction. So in a normal Sukuk parties transaction, we have the Sharia advisor. The Sharia advisor is the gatekeeper, is the most important person in any transaction that will be termed Sukuk. Why? Because we need to review the transaction documents, ensure that the structure and actions of every party align 100% with the Sharia principles, and also go through the contract review process and determine whether the contract is suitable and it is also within the stipulated implementation framework. Then we now have the issuing houses, which are on that side. I used to be on the side of the Sharia advisor in my former role, where we look at it, but now I'm now on the fundraising side, which is the issuing house side. Then we have the trustees, we have the solicitors who have been drafting the transaction documents, we have the reporting accountant who will look at the audited financials, we have the rating agencies, we have the auditors, and we also have the registrars, which may not be important sometimes. So when you look at it, you will see that the Sharia advisor is painted green, and the essence is to show that even with all these heads, none of the heads is as good as the green head here. The green head is the most important head in this particular body. So it shows the importance of Sharia advisor in ensuring that transaction remains compliant. And for Sharia advisor, the role they perform is a fiduciary role, meaning it is like somebody trusting you with a particular service. One must be very careful so that if tomorrow the transaction remains not Sharia compliant, the investors will not be held responsible. It is the Sharia advisor that will be held responsible by Allah, because they're giving their trust in your review process, they're giving their trust in your certification, and as such, one need to be careful is in doing that. Then we now have what are some of the Sukuk benefits now. Number one, we look at job creation. When you do road construction or you want to do estate development, indirectly people will be involved in doing these services, be it skilled labor and unskilled labor. Everyone's item will always be needed. And I remember when Sukuk started at the federal level, the then Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, who always used this as one of his direct impact of Sukuk, that whenever he goes to the construction site and you see people working, you look around, you normally see food vendors who will come around to sell food to the people who are doing the construction at the construction site. And you look at the indirect impact, the Sukuk proceed being that the workers working at the construction site need to eat, and as such, the woman who is selling the food will not be there if those workers are not there. So we have the direct and the indirect job creation that Sukuk project have been able to impact positively on the Nigerian economy and also other jurisdictions where Sukuk have been implemented. We also have the infrastructural development. Today, virtually everyone, especially for people who are in the FCT, Abuja, like where I am currently, most of the current road development in the FCT today are being financed by Sukuk. So when you look at the road in FCT, you will see Sukuk funded road, virtually most of the road. And as such, it gives me joy that this is where my money is going into. And we can easily see the impact. We can feel the impact of Sukuk when, as an investor, you pass through it. Indirectly, you are enjoying your money. And you're also being paid rental for this money. Some will now be asking, why is it that the roads are not towed? The question is, if the government told the road is fine, if they also decide not to tow the road is also fine. So it's just like a landlord or a tenant who decides to be paying his rental from his salary. If tomorrow you decide not to pay your rental from your salary, as far as the landlord is concerned, what I'm after is that you should pay me my rent. Whether you are paying me for your salary, or you are paying me from the dividend you got from your shares, the major obligation is for you to pay me my rent. It's the same thing. The federal government of Nigeria is the lessee in the federal government of Nigeria. As such, they may decide to pay it through toll gate, and they may decide to pay it through other income they've generated. So it is more of a political game, especially in the case of Nigeria, whereby today the federal government of Nigeria should put toll gate on the road. I believe the government may be afraid of the reports that will come from the electorate or the population. So it's more of a political stuff than any other. Then we also have financial inclusion. In the past, most ethical investors or Muslims have been disenfranchised from the capital market. Why? Because there are no Sharia compliant investment instruments. But when Sukuk came in, we've seen that as Muslims, we can be able to invest in the capital market. And today, virtually, even in the pension industry, we have the RSA Fund 6. The RSA Fund 6 is termed the non-interest RSA Fund, meaning basically it invests only in Sharia compliant instruments. So we can see that with Sukuk coming in, even the pension, the insurance, the Takafu side, the fund managers, they now have asset classes they can put their money in that will ensure that the investors' money now will be Sharia compliant. So with coming of Sukuk, it has deepened the financial inclusion rate we have in the market, right? Because ethical investors now have fixed income instruments they can actually put their money in. And it also encourages retail investors because with as little as 10,000 naira, one can actually invest in Sukuk. So meaning it is an investment meant for both the retail investors, the high net worth individuals, and the qualified institutional investors. So we also have the economic growth and development. So meaning since Sukuk proceeds are being used basically for infrastructure development or for investment activities that are positive in nature. Positive here because we are not investing in alcohol, because alcohol have inversely related negative impact on the economy. Yes, there may be money generating from alcohol, but whether we like it or not, the road safety will come that most accidents have been caused by drivers who are drunk, and or people, most hospitals today, most people spend money. Why? Because they said a lot of people have kidney issues indirectly, some are alcohol takers, and some also take cigarettes. Yes, the company who engage in the production of those products, they declare billions of naira as profit year by year. However, it has a high level of inverse negative impact on the health of the people who are consuming it. So we can't call such kind of product positive. We can only say on the profit side, it may be profitable, but on the social side, it is not. So we'll not term it economic growth and development, looking at it from the ethical side. But we have businesses today, whether the Dangote, the MTN, the Okomo Oil, who produce alcohol and the likes, we can see the impact some of these have on the economy as it is today. Then we also have the enhance the financial and capital market as it is today. So today, my company is here. Why? Because we can do services that we termed Sharia compliant. We can do Sharia compliant sukuk, which is we can do Sharia compliant short-term instruments like either some will call it asset-backed commercial papers, but we call it maybe short-term notes that shows that we can raise short-term capital and term it Sharia compliant. So with Sukuk coming in, we've been able to see that these are some of the benefits, directly or indirectly, we've benefited from such kind of noble investment instrument. Now, we are not talking about Sukuk for cooperatives, because that is the essence of this particular presentation that we have today. So, Sukuk for cooperative, like we know, cooperatives are basically institutions. I would like to meet here. I know we have some people who are not in Nigeria on the call. In Nigeria, we have, let me go like this. For Sukuk for cooperative, number one, we are looking at mobilizing capital for projects and member financing. We're also looking at attracting small and institutional investors who may be seeking Sharia compliant instruments. And thirdly, or lastly, deepening the financial inclusion and community development. So for cooperative, basically, cooperative is just like an organization which is owned, controlled, and used by its members, and where profits and benefit are shared fairly rather than maximized for external investors. So the good thing about cooperative is that unlike maybe some other institutions whereby the owners are different and those who manage the business are different, for cooperative, the owners are also the ones that manage the business mostly. They may appoint a project manager, however, decisions on what to invest and how to invest is 100% the sole decision of the members. And basically, they make profit and they also enjoy from the benefit of the business, and they share fairly rather than looking at maximizing profit for external investors. So this has been the foundation of cooperative. However, things are changing. So cooperative are also becoming more greedy than we can think of. So I believe with time. So and there's one common thing today that I've noticed. We have some cooperatives that are even bigger than some microfinance banks or even fund managers in the country today, going by the size of the members and the amount of money they control. So by legally, whether you have billions of naira in your bank, a cooperative will still be a cooperative. Why? Because even the legal registration limited to the kind of the regulator that gave them the license, which is basically mostly either the Ministry of Commerce in some states or some Ministry of Agriculture, depending on the state nomenclature. But which on the other side, you have businesses who need to go and register with the Corporate Affairs Commission. So for cooperative, as it is today, we will be looking at some of these. Then for the key features of a cooperative, one is the membership, which mostly members jointly own the cooperative. So meaning is everybody's interest is in that entity. And for the economic participation, members contribute capital and share in surplus based on usage and not what shareholding. And the service oriented is that the primary goal is to serve members, not profit maximization. So, but like I mentioned, I don't know if that is still the case for most other cooperatives as it is today, due to the current economic situation that we have. And last but not least, that the autonomy and independence, that it is controlled by members even when working with government or financials. So we've had cooperatives from some are industry tied, especially in the oil and gas, even in the financial institutions. There are billions of naira in their banks, and the members are still staff of those entities, and they also still manage the investment and activities of the cooperative. In terms of the common types, we have the consumer, meaning mostly the members are only interested in purchasing either household item. Sometimes you see people collectively come together to purchase either a cow, or some will go to building material to purchase cement like a truck and distribute and share it based on their unit need as such. So we can call those ones the consumer cooperatives, meaning they are only interested in consuming items. While some, you may have what we call the producer cooperative, meaning it could be agricultural related, it could be manufacturing of goods or services. They are mostly manufacturers, and they come together to for a common goal, either in the purchase of raw material or purchase of a major item, or even in seeking for financing as such. Then we also have credit and trade, which is one of the most popular one we have in Nigeria today, where people only put their money and they also, some of them seek for loan as such. I think this is the most popular cooperative that we started most of us.
I'm sorry, sir. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam.
We have about 4 minutes to the end of the session, sir. I don't know, so we can have sessions
Okay, don't worry.
Questions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we have the housing cooperative and we have the multipurpose cooperative, which combine most of this. So we have some the workers part. Then we now have in Nigeria, like I mentioned, that most cooperatives are governed by laws regulated by the states. But the good thing with respect to cooperative is the fact that there's what we call mutual assistance, risk sharing, equitable distribution, which now make it suitable for Islamic finance or micro sukuk, as we call it. Now, when we say micro sukuk, we are talking about sukuk, which basically are small tickets, simplified, and in terms of the low hanging fruit, the minimum investment will be between 5,000 to 50,000. It could be a short term, 10 or 1 to 36 months, simple asset based or asset backed structure, or retail and cooperative member investors are primary subscribers. And why do we need micro sukuk for an ideal cooperative in Nigeria? It's basically this: cooperative already have defined membership and they identify assets or activities. They have strong social trust, going by the fact that it's a communal relationship as such. And because they have regular cash flow, whether from the business activities or even from the monthly contribution or regular contribution from the members. So it makes micro sukuk convert this strength into Sharia compliant capital market instrument. So meaning cooperative are very good ideal for some of these instruments for it to work. And in terms of the key opportunity for cooperative of micro sukuk is that number one, since we have member-based capital mobilization, which is the internal micro sukuk here, then we'll now be looking at the fact that the opportunities will be cooperative issues only to its members, replaces the interest-based cooperative loans, and in terms of the use cases, working capital is a good example of what the cooperative can benefit from sukuk, asset acquisition, either vehicle, machine, tools, then even revolving member financing, especially for those who are engaged in manufacturing or producing any side. And for key opportunities for cooperative micro sukuk is the structure of either we use an Ijara sukuk or a Wakala micro sukuk, where the cooperative will be acting as agent. And the impact is that number one, it deepens the internal funding mechanism for the cooperative. Then it preserves Sharia compliance for their activities, and it reduces dependence on bank or financial institutions. So meaning the members will be it will be treated as a special investment on its own. The members will be the investors, and indirectly they may also be the beneficiaries of the asset is supposed to be used well. And in summary, synergy between cooperative will go along with deepening and spreading the risk of the sukuk or asset and project. What I'm saying is that today we have different cooperatives. What stops cooperatives who are very big in their numbers to come together, and instead of one cooperative looking for $1 billion to purchase a land or start a particular project, Cooperative can come together, bring their capital in smaller units, make it establish an SPV, and that SPV will become the owners of the assets. Since each cooperative are owners of those SPV, they can jointly finance business activities, whether the asset will be used by their members or even third parties, the general public. Or what will be more important is that those assets should be income generating assets. And this would be a very good avenue for cooperative to look at how they can do some funding or even business activities outside their regular business activities. In terms of the mitigation strategy, that means there is need for cooperative to partner with capital market professionals like us so that we can advise them accordingly on what they need to do, then conduct impact studies and financial modeling. So it is high time cooperatives start looking at their operation as informal. Yes, they may be informal in terms of regulation. However, their impact is very high, going by the amount and the trust a lot of people have on cooperative operations. Then we can have use smaller pilot Sukuk issuance before scaling. So, like I mentioned, Sukuk doesn't mean that it has to be billions of naira because we are only used to the FGS Sukuk. Sukuk, you can do Sukuk of 50 million naira, 100 million naira. Even you can do Sukuk of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, depending on the underlying asset and the contract as such. And in terms of the practical structure, which because of time, I will not be able to give example of structures that we can use, cooperative can use in structuring Sukuk. I believe if the organizer will share some of these slides with you, the structures will be included in the transaction, in the paper that I delivered today. However, I put 3 different contracts. I used the Mudaraba, I used the Ijara, and I also used the Muraba as a good example of contracts that we can use to structure Sukuk for cooperative. And I believe any cooperative that will be interested in this, it can help in seeking for financing or creating a more structured investment vehicle for the members as such. But before I go, there is tradability for cooperatives, since the Sukuk will not be listed on any exchange, especially for micro Sukuk. But we have some big cooperatives today that we know, some big estates that were constructed by cooperative, whether in Lagos or Abuja, because of how big they are. They may decide to even do Sukuk that will be regulated by the SEC. But for this presentation, it is mostly for close-ended Sukuk between members of cooperative. Some contracts you can trade, some you cannot trade. And you can see out of all these contracts, Mudaraba can be traded, Musharaka can be traded, Ijara can be traded on the secondary exchange, but for Muraba and Salam, no, Wakala can be traded. The only reason why Muraba can be traded will be that if you have an hybrid structure whereby Ijara is 51% of the total Sukuk fund, while Muraba is 49%, as such, it can be traded. Why? Because Ijara is the majority of this particular asset class. So I will stop here. Apologies, I did not know that you're giving me 1 hour for the presentation. My presentation will have been more faster so that I will have more time to explain the practical implementation of those structures that I've added, that I put into the structure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for honoring our call and also the wonderful presentation as well. So, inshallah, because the session is always on, we are sorry that you're not notified or you're not aware of that. We probably also do not want to delay, our participant as well. So everyone might probably have 1 or 2 things doing, and that's it. So inshallah, we'll move straight on to the next thing, and that is to take questions. So would only be opportunity to take just 3 questions. I don't know. So I'm very sorry if I did not pick you, inshallah. And so as it appears on my screen, in that order, that is what I will pick. Okay, I think the first person, okay. Sir, do you want to take all the question once, or you want to answer as they ask?
As you wish. Anyone you want me to do.
Okay. So let's just take everything at once. So we'll probably not have you delayed. All right. So Sufyan, I'm seeing Sufyan on my screen. Please kindly unmute yourself so we can hear your question, please. Sufyan, are you there? The person using that space. Yeah, sure, we can. Please, a quick one.
Yeah, I really appreciate your lecture. In fact, I've been enlightened a lot because I really don't know much about this Sukuk and Islamic and financing. We're only used to the conventional way of getting money through the conventional banks. But since my question is directed towards the cooperative for credit and thrift. That's for Sukuk financing. Is it that when you start up the credit and thrift, is it that you have to raise a particular amount of money to be financed first, or is your own money that you're using to run your activities? I don't know. I'm not too clear on that. So I would like to know. I want you to shed more light on that so that I know what to. If I start up something like that, I know how to go about it. So
All right. Thank you very much. Sir, did you capture that, sir?
Yes, I do.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. So the next one, Ibrahim, the person using that space, Ibrahim Muhili. Can you unmute yourself so let's hear you? Thank you.
I don't have a question, but I want to request, because I joined the class late. So I want to ask if there's a way we can get the recording and the material.
Sure, absolutely. So on our YouTube, we have a YouTube channel where this lecture absolutely will be uploaded. So
Okay.
you can subscribe to our YouTube. Alcore, HALCORE. HALCORE. Thank you very much. Okay.
What about the material?
Don't worry. Once we get the consent of the lecturer to share the slides, inshallah, we are going to drop it on the platform.
Okay, sir.
All right. We have all of your emails, so inshallah, maybe we can have them forwarded to you. Inshallah. All right. So Afolabi, I think we're just going to take 5. So Afolabi, can you unmute yourself and let's hear you? Afolabi Abdul Latif. A quick one, please.
I just have a quick question for the presenter. Jazakumullah Karen for the presentation. My question was now touching on somewhere which I knew you weren't able to go in a bit. The short-term sukuks we're talking about now. I know some people, some issuing houses come out and do short-term commercial papers, which are halal, ethical Islamic papers as well. And I've looked at both of them, and from what your explanation, some of those things, they can be called the short-term sukuks. So going forward, is this something we should just, is it better for us to term them short-term sukuk instead of non-interest commercial papers? Because we all know commercial papers, most likely when people hear them, they're usually conventional based instruments. So in your opinion, should people go on with the non-interest commercial papers, or let's just switch it to short-term sukuk? Because most of the underlying assets, the principles backing them, they're basically almost the same, in my opinion. That's my question.
Okay, well understood. Do you want me to go ahead and give explanation to the 2 questions, right?
Am I being heard, please?
Do you want me to go ahead and explain the 2 questions that have been asked before we go further?
Okay, go ahead, sir. Then
so for the first one on the internal funding or external funding for cooperatives that was asked by Mr. Sufyan, that whether the cooperative should use their own internal funding or external funding. Yes, basically that is what we call seed capital. The cooperative member can start with their own fund for Sukuk transaction for normal internal cooperative activities. But when it involves that you want to do Sukuk, like I mentioned, especially when you want to have syndicate financing, If, for instance, I want to go micro now, we have maybe secondary schools, and within the secondary schools, you have cooperatives. What stop a secondary school A and secondary school B cooperative coming together to jointly finance or a particular transaction? It could be project or anything, in such a way that the little amount each of the cooperative have, they can come together and put into one, and it probably will make sense in making the business more viable, and it also increases the risk review mechanism as such when you have multiple people coming into being. So for internal, yes, the internal funding gives you limited access, but when you subject it to the external funding, it gives you more comprehensive access to financing. One, it also makes the risk review more robust. As such, the risk of those transactions become more low. Like I mentioned, that if it is basically on loan, mostly when you look at it critically, people collect loan is either to buy some household item or even pay rent or do this. We have contracts that can be structured to address some of these. So meaning the cooperative can be the seller of some of these products, and you still make money selling the item to the members at such. Number one, you purchase the item maybe through wholesale at a lower cost. By the time you finance the member, you are financing them even at a lower final price compared to when they have the money to go and purchase it at the outside vendor. So I think basically it is just looking at it holistically, and I believe with time a lot of people understand the basic way out for this. The second question on whether short-term fundraising within the capital market can be termed sukuk or commercial paper. I think basically it is based on regulation, and as such, I've seen a lot of people that have also argued that there is nothing like Sharia compliant commercial paper, because the commercial paper is more of discounting receivables, and Islamic finance, you cannot discount receivables because receivable is like debt. Any attempt to discount it is tantamount to you trading on debt. What can be done is for you to issue a new asset. So I believe it basically boiled down to the financial advisor who is directing the affairs of the transaction, who may be able to advise the client that as far as regulation is concerned, the regulator agreed that you can do sukuk for even a shorter period of time. So why not we fulfill some of these? On the other hand, you also have people who want to fulfill that we have some asset classes. But in summary, I believe one thing is clear is that it is not all products within the conventional market that can be replicated within the Islamic finance. Like I mentioned at the beginning, that Islamic finance is a unique finance on its own. We must not copy everything being done in the conventional side. We have our own products. We can structure it the way it is, and I believe everything will align as such. So basically, it is more of we operator now advising the client in the right way for us to understand some of this. And again, because some of the regulation is that the requirement for either asset-backed commercial paper or sukuk may also differ sometimes, and people will now need to look at it holistically. For the asset-backed commercial paper, like you may not need to provide payment guarantee in some situation. With or without, it can fly because it relies basically on the credit rating of the originator, which is the obligor. And this will now take us to the asset backed and asset based, and that I was trying to explain. Commercial papers basically are asset based. Why? Because the recall is on the obligor now. It is not on any asset, basically. Because even when you do short-term commercial paper, mostly you use Muraba. And Muraba, because it's a sales contract, you already sold the item to the obligor. As such, the recourse will only be on the obligor and not on the asset. So commercial paper basically is asset-based in nature. But for Sukuk, when you structure Sukuk in this case, it will be an asset by because there may be the true ownership of that asset to be transferred to the SPV so that if tomorrow there are issues, the SPV can take charge of that asset, sell the asset to a third party, and recover the money expected to the investor. So I believe there are a lot of things that need to be looked at for Labi when determining whether it is commercial paper or Sukuk, depending on which one. Thank you very much.
All right. So we'll take two more questions. That is from Usman and also Abdul Wali. But before we do that, Madam Sadiq, can we quickly have you so we can hear a brief from Alco as also. Madam Sadiq, are you there? We still have two questions to take from Usman and also Abdul Wali. Madam Sadiq, are you there?
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. I think we can wrap up the Q&A, then we can have a quick discussion about alcohol.
Okay, beautiful. So, Mr. Usman, and also Usman, let's hear from you. Kindly unmute yourself so we can hear you.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that was a very wonderful session by Mr. Ismail. Well done. So my question is this: for individual companies, because the fact that a corporation are able to raise sukuk for their members or to raise finance, how can this be applied to private companies that are looking for Sharia compliance or sort of finance rather than banking finance?
Okay. Mr. Abdulwali. Thank you very much, Mr. Osman. Mr. Abdulwali, can we hear from you? Kindly unmute yourself so let's hear the question.
Jazakumullah khair for that beautiful presentation. My question is that how is it possible to apply the instrument of Sukuk to mosques? Since we know that one of the major problems of our mosques is financial capability. How can we apply Sukuk to enhance mosques' financial sustainability? Jazakumullah khair.
So thank you very much, sir. Go ahead, sir.
So let me start with the last question. Like I mentioned that Islamic finance, we have the economic side, we have the social side. And among the social side is work as a concept. For mosque, we can issue work related sukuk, meaning each contributor or investors in this sukuk automatically know that this sukuk will be used for creating a work asset. And it is the work asset now, the income being generated from these work assets, that will now be going to the maintenance of the mosque. And as we know, a work asset must be an asset that will stand over a longer period of time. So meaning it is stand sadaqah tujariyah, everlasting project for the investors. So as an investor, it can be structured this way. We can structure it like an hybrid work, whereby some part of the income can come back to the investors, while some part will go to the charitable activities. And so any investors who want to invest in this automatically know that this is a work asset. Let me use an example. We may decide to do a sukuk for a commercial plaza in a very viable location. And this plaza, when it is fully completed, will be owned by the work company or the work assets or the work SPV that will be created. It means none of the investors can come today and say, I want to come and take over this asset, because you know that any money I've given to this project, it is now out of my own control. Now, the project, which is the commercial building, the rentals being generated from this particular building will be going to the maintenance of the numbers of mosques that we identified as the beneficiaries. So as Muslims, collectively, we can come together, decide that for mosque in Abuja or mosque in Lagos, especially, let's say people in Lekki, they may decide that for the mosque in Lekki, the concerned Muslim in Lekki can come together and establish a waqf. And this work can be subjected to both internal and external member contribution. What we'll do is that when we raise the capital will be used in identifying either investment in real assets or even an investable capital market product. Then when we invest in such, any rentals being generated or profit being generated from the investment will not be used for the maintenance of those mosques. So whether I'm alive or I'm not alive, I've donated, invested my money in this particular project. It continues and generation upon generation, in as much as that asset, the value keep growing, the income generated from such will also increase. So I believe it is now high time for we Muslims to look at investment, not just from the economic side. We should also be looking at the social side of investment. What can each and every one of us do for us to contribute to the maintenance of the house of Allah, which is the mosque, whereby mosque will not be independent. They can have some independent source of income rather than the regular day-to-day sadaqah that we collect for the maintenance of those mosques. So I believe using a work sukuk will be a very good option for us to look at. And I believe with your 5 naira, 50,000 naira, 100,000 naira, everybody can come together and establish such kind of work project. And I believe it will be a good one for us to look at. For the first question that I asked about how can private entities benefit from Sukuk issuances? Yes, we've done a lot of private Sukuk issuances. The major underlying is the financial rating capacity of the private firm. Like I mentioned, Sukuk can be structured for social and economic side. For the economic side, automatically the investors are interested in profit generation. So how viable is the private entity that need the capital? Are you financially strong, that your projects, your corporate governance structures are well put in place? As such, it is easy that when you issue Sukuk, to pay back the investors will be more easy. And if it's a project type, the project itself is 100% profitable, and it can also pay back any projected income that has been identified as such. So I think basically you have to now look at the local financial standing of those companies to see whether those companies can withstand the corporate governance structure and the integrity test expected, especially if it will be subjected to the regulator's approval, whether they have all the requirements that is put in place by the regulator for them to come to the market to issue funds. But for cooperative, because cooperative are like informal entities, within the closed group or doing syndicate, they can come together and do support, either raising capital for themselves or raising capital for projects that will be used by general public. The major thing is that those projects must be income generating projects so that you can pay back to any investors, which mostly the investors can also be the members of the entity as such. I believe those are the explanations to the two questions. Thank you very much.
All right, Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Really do appreciate. So, Mr. Sadikido, let's take the alcohol brief, then we'll come to round off the session.
All right. Jazakallah khairan. I'll start by appreciating our lecturer. I mean, accepting to come speak about this very critical topic. We do appreciate and acknowledge your efforts. I want to quickly address something. There was some feedback around a need to discuss this topic, like to go more deep into the Sukuk for cooperative, like a deep dive. Maybe we are going to get back to the audience regarding this, but we would definitely get in touch with the lecturer and see the possibility. Due to the time constraint, the lecturer couldn't talk more around that. And I see there's a lot of interest around that area. So having said that, just to speak briefly about Alco. Alco is a digital company. We basically build solutions that speak to digitizing operations of mostly non-interest financial institutions. And so far, we've laid our hands on 2 products, which we are currently at the phase of completion. One speaking to cooperatives and the other speaking to stock screening, how entities that play in the capital markets can have access to API-based solution that allows them to have real-time view of compliance of certain stocks. We appreciate the support so far in terms of those who have indicated interest in what we are building, giving very valuable feedback, because in as much as we are building to ensure that we are fully Sharia compliant on what we've built, we also appreciate feedback to understand some of the key constraints that who we are building for are currently facing. So it helps us properly prioritize. I would definitely keep in touch with those that we're engaging, and would promptly communicate on the progress of our projects so far. I think that would be basically all for now. And as we all know, the Safir series is a monthly program, and we look forward to having everyone be a part of our January edition, inshallah. We'll promptly communicate the topic and all other important information to be aware about. I will just stop there. Alam Abdul, can go ahead.
Now, Jazakumullah khairan, and that is the brief on what we do at Alcohol. Jazakumullah khairan. Thank you all for joining this session, everyone, and to the lecturer as well too. Really do appreciate your presence. Jazakumullah khairan for those beautiful insights as well too. And to all our participants, Jazakumullah khairan for joining the call. We hope to see you all again, inshallah, for our January series. Bismillah, Sharat al-Asri, to round up the session.